Welcome to the SVG-TV news for Friday, October 17th. I'm Khalil Kato with the details. The 28th Policy Board meeting of Ministers of Health of the OECS concluded here yesterday with a media conference on the outcome of the two-day session. Two major issues going into the meeting were the chikungunya and Ebola viruses. Director General of the OECS, Dr. Didacus Jules, said the focus of the two-day meeting was not on talks and further planning, but actions that need to be taken with immediate effect on these two viruses. He congratulated this country's government for taking serious measures to contain and prevent a potential Ebola threat, which has already been emulated by other member states. He says they are now seeking to implement these measures throughout the OECS. According to Dr. Jules, a war has been declared on the chikungunya virus, as well as preparations for a longer battle with Ebola. Dr. Jules says while there have been challenges in the overall health sector of the OECS, significant progress has been made and ought to be highlighted. This, he says, includes the increase of HIV treatment, prevention and reduction by all member states with assistance from developed partners.
Recognize that the successes of the OECS pharmaceutical procurement program, which has resulted in huge savings for the governments of the region in the availability of medicines and drugs, particularly on the HIV front as well. Lastly, we recognize there were new opportunities that we saw for best practices in different corners of the OECS that now need to be made universal to the single space of the OECS. And that includes the World Pediatric Program to spread this to the entire OECS, but with a specific attention to the Leeward Islands and Martinique. The Adolescent Sexual and Reproductive Health and Health Rights Program that we now need to take on as a campaign in its own right. The figures presented and the statistics presented on adolescent sexual and reproductive health threats have been truly frightening, and ministers have agreed that we need to deal with this in a very strategic way by engaging with partners, including the churches, so that people are aware of the present dangers that our adolescents face, and that we all commit to being on the same page in terms of how we deal with that, but recognizing some of the cultural sensitivities associated with this matter.
Dr. Jules says they have also recognized that there is a need to strengthen partnerships with several organizations, such as the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, and the World Pediatric Project and the Global Fund.
So we are going to be shaping stronger modalities of cooperation with them. And finally, mechanisms for healthcare financing have been put on the table that seem very positive and doable, but this has to be brought to the OECS authority, the heads, for their sign-off and approval. In summary, what has come out of this meeting, I think, underlying all of these specific issues is a recognition of the importance of undertaking systematic healthcare reform across the OECS to harmonize our systems of surveillance, of protection, of delivery of care in ways that are cost-effective, that share resources, that recognizes centers of excellence where they now exist, and rather than trying to duplicate the wheel, for us to put our support behind those existing centers of excellence, be they in Martinique or Anguilla or St. Kitts or Grenada or wherever else, so that we share the resources, and in that way, by pooling resources, we can more effectively provide that supporting umbrella to our people.
Meanwhile, Executive Director of CARPHA, Dr. James Hospitalis, says the challenges of chikungunya and the history of dengue reveals that the governments, people, and businesses in the region have not been successful in dealing with the Aedes aegypti mosquito.
We need more integrated approaches and communications to families about reducing the breeding and about stopping transmission. We have good agreements with, and they work with LIAT and with CAL for the transport of specimens to the labs that in Port of Spain. We turn around results in 24 hours. That that's an important piece of the puzzle. We do need to evaluate new approaches to eradicating or eliminating the Aedes aegypti mosquito.
As it relates to Ebola, Dr. Hospitalis says there is an overall conclusion that the likelihood of a case coming to the Caribbean is quite low. He, however, advised that further steps need to be taken to strengthen individual, national, and collective preparedness for any eventuality.
So that our citizens are protected, economies are protected, and we're better able to meet international benchmarks such as the international health regulations. Those include the streamlining of harmonizing of procedures at ports of entry, and the strengthening of the situation within the health sector, like isolation facilities, training of health workers, the provision of personal protective equipment. I would say that partly because of the amount of coverage in North America, the problem is bigger than it really is, and there's a need to combat the epidemic of fear with reason. That the likelihood of a case is low, although we must take measures to strengthen individually and collectively. Regional approach is essential. We must be careful in applying measures not to deny people from other countries or our own citizens who have other conditions, not to deny them care. Maybe appendicitis, it may be food poisoning, but as soon as this word Ebola appears, people so that needs to be combated.
The CARFA director says it will also be necessary for member states to advocate with international communities for intensified support for the Ebola-affected countries to gain control of the epidemic.
Until the epidemic is controlled at source, our countries and other countries in the world remain vulnerable. I will go further and suggest, and this was a point made to the Council of Human and Social Development of CARICOM, all the ministers, that the CARICOM countries should be offering to send help to assist. The West African countries have asked desperately that they need help. We always help each other in this part of the world, and that would include with appropriate training, with appropriate provisions in place. But that would help them, and it would also help us to gain very valuable experience if it is that we have to confront the situation in our shores.
Over $196,000 EC dollars worth of flood support to students and schools was presented to the Ministry of Education earlier today. The supplies were provided by UNICEF and the Government of Canada for the relief of students and schools adversely affected by the December 2013 floods. Speaking at the handing over ceremony held at the Foreign Affairs Conference Room, UNICEF representative for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, Kin Sandy Elwin, says that when they heard of the floods, they decided to gather their resources and provide assistance, particularly to the affected students and schools.
To our storeroom where we have our emergency response supplies, and we managed to send them over to St. Vincent and to St. Lucia, where the effects were greatest. So things like water purification tablets, hygiene kits, and in terms of oral rehydration salt, which is the first need. But within a week also, we were able to send back to school kits so that right after Christmas holidays, schools could resume.
Sandy Elwin says they are happy to build a bridge between governments and the honest brokers that each country can count on.
As the Prime Minister said, it's small, it's strategic, such as the child-friendly schools. We hope that young people will be able to really be prepared to be participating in development, and that's where our true partnership is. So thank you very much for the thanks, and we will continue to work very closely with all of you.
Meantime, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves thanked UNICEF and the Government of Canada for the assistance, noting that they have been both very good partners with the government and people of SVG.
Quietly, almost unobtrusively, without fanfare, UNICEF does a lot of good work in the Caribbean and certainly in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to help our children. And they are specialists at intervening with small sums of money, but the small sums have a big bang. They have UNICEF is one of the UN agencies which is not loaded with a lot of cash. But what they have is a lot of heart and a lot of mind which directs them, the mind directs them to what is required, what is necessary and desirable with our children.
4 communities here, through their farmers' cooperatives, have been selected for a rural livelihood enhancement project. A consultation on this project was held earlier today at the Bayaboo Learning Resource Center, hosted by the Cooperatives Department of the Ministry of National Mobilization. The objectives of the Rural Livelihood Enhancement Project are to improve production and marketing capabilities of these cooperatives, to enhance the livelihood of their members, and to reduce incidents of poverty in the selected communities, namely Greggs, Mariquah, South Rivers, and New Prospect. Addressing today's consultation, Parliamentary Representative and Minister of National Mobilization Frederick Stevenson says the 4 communities were selected based on their needs due to the fallout in the banana industry.
All of us know that these communities thrived on bananas, the export of bananas, and when we look around we see what the tragedy of not having to export bananas on a weekly basis is causing in these communities. We see it, and we have to try and do something to help. So we will be targeting 300 farm families over the period, and it is our intention that the farmers, through the cooperative movement, would work together for the benefit of themselves, their families, and the nation as a whole.
Stevenson also used the opportunity to encourage support for the various farmers' cooperatives, which he says could only succeed with the full cooperation of members.
You can't be a farmer involved in the cooperative and want to undersell the cooperative or outsell the cooperative, because you would be destroying what the movement is all about. Benefits and dividends accrue when all of us who are involved, we pool our resources together, and it enhances our livelihoods. And that I want to challenge us, the farmers who are here this morning, who are involved in the cooperative. Please do not let your cooperative fall. Work together for the benefit of yourselves and the benefit of the cooperative, thus ensuring an enhanced livelihood for St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
The project is being supported by the government of Argentina. Head of the delegation on the ground here, Cristina Simone, spoke of her country's history with cooperatives and says good management is also key to their success.
Our experience in my country was that for cooperatives started in the late 19th century. So in the beginning, people thought that the cooperative was a sort of charity. Cooperatives are not charity, are unit productions with benefits, costs to earn our living and the living of our relatives, our sons, for the community. We have earned money, we have produced well, and we have to work hard. So the only thing we can give to you is show our experience that has been also difficult throughout the years.
The 3rd annual UWI Open Campus Literary Fair was declared open on Thursday evening at the UWI Open Campus under the theme, Travel the World Through Reading. One of the highlights at the opening was the honoring of panelist Ken Isles with the Lifetime Achievement Award. Kristen John Dean has more in this report.
Lifetime Achievement Award and a tribute by Rodney Small was all part of the honoring of veteran panist Ken Iles for his accomplishments in music over the years. The recognition was a collaborative effort between the UWI Open Campus and the Vincentian Association of Writers, Artists and Producers. President of the Vincentian Association of Artists, Writers and Producers, Rene Batiste, described Iles as one of the country's most versatile and experienced panists.
He became involved in the art of playing the steel pan at a very tender age, and many are of the opinion it was more genetic than influence why Ken chose to play the steel pan. Ken's father, the late Bertram Alexander, left for Trinidad as a young boy where he lived the earlier part of his life. He became involved in the steel band movement and is one of the founding members of the now famous Desperados Steel Orchestra. When Ken's father returned to St. Vincent, he brought with him his pan skills, and young Ken was almost always present, watching his father build, tune, and play the steel pan. Ken then found himself playing the tenor pan with Labour stars.
Upon accepting his award, Iles said he is happy to be honored in his country.
Things are worth waiting on. I'd like to thank God for my talent that caused me to travel to places I may have never visited. To my dad, who's deceased, who was my inspiration, to all governments, past and present, who chose me to represent our country. I like to refer to her as Honorable still, Miss Honorable Rene Batiste, who heads up this organization, prestigious organization of artists, writers, and producers. I want to say hearty thank you very much. From the depths of my heart, it gives me such a warm feeling.
The opening ceremony of the 3rd Annual Literary Fair also saw performances from the most outstanding duet in the National Dance Festival 2014, the Lomond Leeward Anglican School, along with the La Gracia Dance Company. Activities for the Literary Fair will continue this evening at 7:30 with a poetry night. The film will climax with a film night tomorrow. Kristen John Dean reporting for SVGTV News.
Meanwhile, a sum of $1,500 was donated to the UWI Literary Fair by Columbus Communications, Inc. Representative Corey Garrett says it's the first year the company is participating in the fair, and they look forward to many more years where they can assist.
Open campus. Myself, of course, being a former university alumni, recognizing Columbus's commitment, of course, to social responsibility here in the United States and the Grenadines. The Literary Fair is, of course, one of those programs where we see benefit on education and empowerment. And Columbus, as I said before, is very proud to be part of this Literary Fair this year, and thank you very much for having us here this afternoon.
And head of the UWI campus, Deborah Dalrymple, Open Campus that is, Deborah Dalrymple, expressed thanks to the company for the donation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garrett, and I really want to say a special thank you. As he mentioned, he did not mention that we in fact went to him quite late in the game, and we're very appreciative that he saw the benefits of the literary fair to our country, and he saw the benefits of being associated with an intervention such as this, and was able to come forward and offer us some very much needed funds.
The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has reached an agreement with the parents of students and staff of the Kingstown Government School on the temporary relocation of the students. The Ministry of Education officials met with parents, past students, community leaders, and teachers earlier this week. The consultation was also attended by representatives of the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, the Central Planning Division, the CPD, and the Buildings, Roads and General Services Authority, BRADZA. NEMO's Deputy Director Michelle Forbes explained to the packed hall that her organization is continuing the process of increasing emergency shelter capacity throughout the state. She further noted that Kingstown was in need of an additional shelter, hence the proposed works at the school. CPD's project coordinator for the Regional Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, RDVRP, Richard McLeish, noted that the school was assessed earlier in the year by an overseas consulting firm for its structural integrity, and the next phase, a design consultancy, will commence shortly. McLeish also advised the gathering that construction was not likely to begin until mid-July 2015 and would last for approximately 8 months. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Nicole Bonady-Baker, advised the stakeholders that the relocation of the students and faculty to the former glove factory building, currently occupied by the Kingstown Anglican Primary School, was the planned option, along with an additional facility that would be erected in the immediate vicinity of the factory. The rehabilitative work at the school is expected to be completed ahead of the commencement of the 2016-2017 academic year. The Chamber of Industry and Commerce held a business luncheon yesterday with Columbus Communications Incorporated, looking at the developments here in ICT and the company's role in this regard. Executive Director Anthony Redisford says businesses can hardly exist or thrive without technology, which has changed the way businesses operate. Country Manager at Columbus Communications SVG, Christopher Gordon, says he looks at ICT as a way to enable growth and opportunities for indigenous people of the region.
For persons to take advantage of their human capital, their great ideas, and not necessarily get a disadvantage that they're not in a large developed country. ICT, I could think of as leveling of the playing field. Access to infrastructure and technology is only one part of the puzzle. It really is. What is very critical is having persons understand what the technology can do and how we can enable them to bring their ideas to life. For an entrepreneur, a producer, whoever it may be, to use that technology to gain an international audience. Again, that's through ICT, the internet, to partner, interact, compete against larger companies as an individual and be on that same playing field. So part of what we're going to be doing, I think in association with the Chamber of Commerce, is in the future looking at training seminars for small and medium businesses to help them better understand and use technology, whether it be from Columbus or other firms, but it's important, I think, we all take advantage of technology so businesses can prosper and live. So that is a very important part of our philosophy.
He says over the next few years, his company plans to invest $15 to $20 million in infrastructure for further ICT development in SVG. Parliamentary representative, that should be Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Sports and Culture, Luke Brown, also addressed the audience. He says government's role is to support the ICT sector in SVG through its policies, which often manifest themselves through legislation. He says with a growing population using ICT, it is important that Vincentians have available to them high-speed broadband services at an affordable price, which he says Columbus Communications can seek to deliver.
Prices such that we won't price any segment of our market out of the reach of this technology. And prices that will allow us to put the technology in the hands of young people and of old people, of people of different kinds, different levels of income, so that there is no discrimination where this service is concerned. In fact, it might be well a good thing for Flo to take off, or someone to take it upon their hands to have internet classes for seniors. So those who are reluctant to change, like some people I know, would be able to be brought into the fold of technology. So, having said that, Flo can also put on initiatives aimed at improving the skills of IT professionals in the country, to host workshops, seminars, not only workshops in networking per se, but in programming and other areas. In this way, the cooperation of the company will support local development.